Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are embarking on a truly cinematic biological journey deep inside the human body. We're going to explore a process that, honestly, we all totally take for granted, the exact molecular journey of painkillers. I mean, how do these unassuming tiny little tablets manage to silence our body's loudest, most urgent alarms? Okay, let's dive into this. It's a question almost all of us have asked at some point, right? Maybe you are nursing a pounding headache or icing a sprained ankle. How does that little pill you swallow know exactly where you hurt? Does it have a map? Is it actively seeking out the pain? Well, the reality of what happens under our skin is a fascinating story of chemistry, rapid-fire electrical signals, and literally perfect molecular timing. But to understand the cure, we first have to understand the alarm system itself.
So, part 1, the birth of pain, from injury to chemical alarm.
Picture this. You accidentally brush your finger against a searing hot surface. Instantly, our body's frontline defenders wake up. We call these nociceptors. They are specialized pain receptors in our peripheral nerves, and they are built entirely to detect tissue damage. When that finger touches the hot surface, these nociceptors wake up. Actually, scratch that. They don't just wake up, they scream into action. Imagine them right there at the site of the injured skin, suddenly illuminating with glowing red energy waves. This right here is the very first spark of what you will eventually feel as pain. But, it's not just a tiny electrical spark, it is a full-blown biological crisis response. Down at the microscopic level, those heat-damaged cells immediately start releasing a cocktail of inflammatory chemicals. Things like prostaglandins, histamine, and bradykinin. Think of these like biological flare guns. They completely flood the localized area, and that's what causes the swelling and inflammation you usually see after an injury. More importantly, these glowing chemical molecules are exactly what activate those nearby nociceptors, causing them to glow a bright, angry red. The alarm has officially been tripped. Let's move on and see exactly how this builds. Part 2, Journey to the Brain, the pathway of pain. The journey of this pain signal is a rapid, urgent electrical impulse just tearing through your nervous system, and it follows a very precise anatomical pathway. It starts right there at the sensory neurons in your finger. From there, these glowing electrical pulses shoot up the axon of the peripheral nerve in your arm. They race into the spinal cord, which basically acts as the body's superhighway, and finally, they arrive up in the brain. And get this, all of that happens in a fraction of a millisecond. No way, right? But here is a truly mind-bending realization for you. Your injured finger doesn't actually hurt on its own. Pain is only officially perceived when that electrical signal reaches very specific processing centers in the brain, namely the thalamus and the somatosensory cortex. It's only when these specific regions light up and process the signal that your brain flashes a sort of biological holographic warning that says, pain perceived. Which brings us to part 3. The painkiller enters the medicine's journey. So the alarm is blaring in the brain and it's time for the rescue mission. I want you to imagine the calm, cinematic voyage of a single painkiller tablet as it navigates the dark, winding tunnels of the digestive tract. It travels from the mouth, down the esophagus, and into the stomach. By the time it reaches the small intestine, it isn't a solid tablet anymore. It has completely dissolved into thousands of tiny, glowing medicine molecules, which are then absorbed directly through the intestinal walls and straight into the nearby blood vessels. And just like that, we're inside the bloodstream. It's like this beautiful, flowing, microscopic river. Now, our tiny painkiller molecules don't have a map. Instead, they're simply swept along in the current, flowing seamlessly alongside red blood cells and plasma. Because blood circulates through your entire body in less than a minute, which is pretty wild when you think about it, these medicine molecules are carried everywhere rapidly, including straight toward the glowing, red, inflamed tissue of your injured finger. And this is where things get really good. Part 4, Blocking the Signal, the Molecular Blockade. This is the climax of our explainer. It's where the journey of the pain finally meets the journey of the medicine. Down at a crystal clear molecular level, it's all about lock and key binding. The painkiller molecules don't just bump into things randomly. Now, what's really interesting about this is how they are specifically shaped to fit absolutely perfectly into target receptor proteins and enzymes, just like a key sliding flawlessly into a lock. And once they bind, they initiate the blockade. But exactly how they block that pain completely depends on the type of medicine. Take NSAIDs, for example, things like Ibuprofen. These work locally, right at the site of the injured tissue. They attach themselves to something called the COX enzyme.
By blocking this enzyme, they stop the production of those inflammatory prostaglandins we talked about earlier. And no prostaglandins means the pain receptors calm down. On the flip side, we have opioids. These operate entirely differently. They cross right into the central nervous system and the brain. They bind to opioid receptors at the synapses, actively decreasing the release of neurotransmitters. So they don't fix the finger, they simply block the pain message from being read by the brain entirely.
And this brilliantly illustrates the dramatic biological shift that happens inside you. Think about a state without a painkiller. You've got this biological crisis, high prostaglandins, super strong pain signals, and tissues and nerves glowing a bright, angry red with inflammation. But then, with the painkiller doing its lock and key magic, the whole environment transforms. Prostaglandins drop, inflammation is drastically reduced, the pain signal becomes incredibly weak, and those once angry nerves are now bathed in a calm, soothing blue.
Finally, part 5, the final resolution, silencing the alarm.
As those painkiller molecules get to work, those rapid-fire electrical alarms racing up your spinal cord, they start to slow down, and eventually, they fade to absolute silence. The body's energy transitions right back to a healthy, normal rhythm. Before we wrap up, let's just quickly acknowledge a few of the most common heroes in this molecular story: paracetamol, ibuprofen, aspirin, and naproxen. While they each target pain through slightly different mechanisms, whether working more on the central nervous system or just reducing local inflammation, they all rely on this incredible, sweeping journey through your bloodstream. And, of course, because these are very powerful molecular tools, it's absolutely crucial to always use them strictly according to medical guidance and dosage recommendations.
So the crucial point is this. Painkillers don't actually eliminate the injury itself. They simply reduce or block the pain signals that reach your brain. Your body is still doing all the heavy lifting and hard work of healing behind the scenes. Your brain is just mercifully spared the blaring alarm. But it leaves us with such a fascinating thought to chew on. If we can engineer a simple dissolving key to hack our own biology and just turn off pain, what other alarms and signals in the human body are we just a few molecules away from mastering? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep staying curious.